Hey, welcome back to Behind Enemy Lines. Speaking of behind enemy lines, Mike and I have a great guest, Michael Yan, who's been behind enemy lines so many times. I'm honored to have him on the show. For those of you that might not be familiar with Mike, he was a Green Beret. He lived in 100 different countries throughout his career. He was a war correspondent. On this show today, we're going to talk about the Darien Gap and the dangers of the Darien Gap and some of the things that are occurring there before the invasion of our country and what's going on now and the intent of the Chinese and other countries where they kind of made that a base for them to help them infiltrate our country from the Darien Gap. So he's going to talk about some very exciting things that occurred down there. I got a little echo. Is that me or no?
I'm not
A
sure
little
who
echo.
that's coming from yet, but
Got
yeah.
a little. Um, I- so before, well, why don't we have yourself introduce yourself, Mike? A little bit of elaborate, and then what we're going to do when you're done, before we start jumping into the show, wanted to show Mayor Brandon Johnson and what he just said about ICE yesterday, and we're going to show how dangerous that is based on the information that you have and what's coming into our country. A lot of us know what's coming in, but not to the depth and the detail of what you saw in the Darien Gap and how it's going to affect America. So why don't you do a better bio introduction than what I gave you, because I don't think I gave you justice, and then we'll jump in and show that video, and we'll go from there.
Right. If you still hear that echo, I can put earphones on. I hope it's not coming from me. Uh,
I think it went away. I think it
okay. Oh. Okay. There we go.
That's
This
better.
little
There you
switch.
go. Oh, that's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that sound better?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Sounds good to
Good.
me.
All right. Sorry about that slight tech issue. All right. So I'm back in Japan. I spent a lot of time in the Darien Gap. I was just down there, and then I spent more than a year there since Biden was installed. And either down in the Darien Gap or looking at the Panama Canal and other aspects of Panama, because Panama is so crucial to the United States and to the world for that matter. And so I spend a lot of time there. And so I left Panama and I went back to Texas for more than a month, and took care of admin there and talked with a lot of Texans about. I love Texas. I go there all the time. Actually, the camera's here, isn't it? And so, and so. And then I came back to Japan. Japan is facing a lot of the same problems that we are, right? This place is being invaded just like we are, although it's
Oh
a little
yeah.
bit behind us on that. They're catching up, right?
Wow.
And so, in fact, right around me here, there's a lot of people from the Middle East and that sort of thing in this neighborhood, right? So, I mean, this is really, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's happening. A lot of people think it would never happen in Japan, but it is.
Yeah.
And actually, go ahead, sir.
I
No, I said yeah.
just I just saw
Yeah.
a story related to that they had an area. It was a small town that's become a home to a lot of tourists, well, a lot of invaders. There's calling it tourists in the articles because they're overly polite. But they had an outdoor vending area basically just
Wait,
destroyed.
we got another echo again, Mike. Just started again.
Yeah, sorry. I think it's yeah, Michael, you might have to use headphones or
Okay.
if
Okay.
possible. Yeah, they just had this area just completely just destroyed. That people came in the middle of the night, wrecked this whole area with all these outdoor vending machines. They hadn't had any major crime in this little town in almost 40 years. It's been little, tickets, DUIs, that type of thing, but no vandalism, no major like just property crimes in almost 40 years. And now all of a sudden that they're having this influx of people and the nuisance streamers that are showing up there.
So while we're waiting for Mike to get his headset on, why don't we put on the Mayor Brandon Johnson video? And this is really important, right? He just said this yesterday. I want you to hear this, right? So we're going to become one of the biggest safe havens in the United States of America for our enemies that are infiltrating our country. They're already here, right? And Mike's going to talk about really how dangerous it is. So now when you hear the mayor, and we got Governor Pritzker that's going to protect these people in the city of Chicago against Tom Holman and ICE. So go ahead, play that, and we'll jump
You know
in.
what? I don't think this is the right video. It's an hour long.
Oh, okay.
I just caught that a second ago. Hold on. Let me grab your link again. We'll just redo this. I've got it in my...
So anyway, Mayor Brandon Johnson said that he is not going to, he's bragging about not going to cooperate with ICE. Back in December, when Tom Holman came into Chicago, He had a couple public meetings, but he had one private meeting at his hotel. We had three private meetings. One was with Alderman Ray Lopez. He's a Hispanic Democratic alderman. He's on Fox News, very vocal. He's a Hispanic, and he was meeting with Holman, saying how the Hispanic community, needs his help, and they want to go after these people. I had another gentleman that I can't mention, very well known, wealthy African American that didn't come out yet about this meeting, and Democrat as well, about how they need help in the city of Chicago. Again, this was back in December. We had another guy from the county level, and then we had a couple of senior Chicago police officers. Obviously, you know why their names cannot be mentioned, right? And these are the guys that are putting their lives at risk because of the policies of Biden, Brandon Johnson, Pritzker. And so it's so important to the safety and security of our country. And did you get that video?
Yep, got the video right one loaded up now.
All right.
All right,
So
let's roll it.
you ready? Go ahead.
Yep.
Hi, Mayor. On federal immigration enforcement, one of the things LA has done is has continued to be a target specifically of military force in immigration enforcement, is set up local police perimeters around schools to shield students from federal agents without warrants. Have you considered, or would you consider, setting up CPD perimeters around public spaces in Chicago, including schools, or does that not fall under the department's purview?
Excuse me. Again, it's unconscionable at a time in which so many working people and poor people need government to show up for them, that this administration, the Trump administration, has caused so much consternation and division. Look, we are a welcoming city ordinance. Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE. Whatever their constitutional authority is, that is obviously relegated to the Trump administration. All of our sister agencies, city departments, have been thoroughly briefed by a corporate counsel.
Okay. So basically, he's saying that he's not going to cooperate whatsoever. Another individual I forgot to mention that was in that meeting with Tom Holman was a friend of mine. I'm not going to say his name, and he represents over 100 Hispanic pastors. And matter of fact, I had a meeting with them with the Epoch Times reporter with maybe 25 of them, and many of them couldn't speak English, and they had to translate for us, and they were upset with what's going on. Right, their community. There's people like from the Hispanic community that when Trent Largo came into Chicago, they're making them pay street tax for people that were there before these guys got there, right? And so these pastors are upset. The crime, the stigma, all the things. One guy, I forgot what country he was from in South America, and he said that they're letting these people in here. They're doing it to have them vote. We know what they're doing. These are Hispanic guys that don't even speak English. And so the community is really upset. And the Republicans, I think they got to get off their ass, and they need to grasp the anger and the frustration that's going on in the city of Chicago to help us. These people are looking for help, but we're not doing anything. That's a whole different topic. But I just wanted people in Chicago, as we lead into this conversation with Mike, to understand we are making ourselves a welcoming, open, secure city for these people to feel safe and secure, and they're going to hide there. And we got enemies, Chinese, all different kinds of enemies throughout the whole world that are going to come to the city of Chicago because they know they're going to be safe by the governor and the mayor. So with that said, Michael, why don't you got so much to talk about, so I'll let you kind of shuffle through your brain on, explain a little bit about the Darien Gap and why it's so important and critical, and some of the things that you saw going down there with the Chinese and all the other things that are leading to the crime that's going to happen in the United States of America and some of the sabotage.
Right. Now, keep in mind, in the last 4 years, I've been in about 30 countries looking at this. So it's not just Panama. I mean, sometimes when I leave Panama, I go over to Netherlands or Belgium, many other countries, about 30 in the last 4 years, right? So I'm in Japan right now. Just left Texas. Before that, I was in Panama, and before that, I don't know where I was at. I was in Argentina, looking at the same thing there, right? So I mean, so I'm looking at this all over the place. And keep in mind the weaponized migration, which is actually invasion,
Yes.
is is just one weapon of many in a very serious war. Another is the death jabs, right? And it's very important that we always use accurate words, because words are the atomic structures of truth and lies. So we can't call the death jab a vaccine, because it's actually not a vaccine, right?
Yeah.
It's actually just not. So it's something else. It's clearly a weapon. So we should call it what it is. It's a weapon, right? So and likewise with the quote unquote migration, it's actually invasion. And the people invade are called invaders, right? So this is an invasion done by invaders, and we have to stick with the atomic level truth. Otherwise, all else that follows will be false, right?
Yep, and
And
those that
so
are that are enabling the invaders are traitors. We got the traitors
that's
enabling
right.
invaders. But go ahead. Sorry.
That's right. 100%. 100%. And so it's a very thorough invasion. Like for instance, Ireland. That's one of the countries I went to maybe 3 years ago and was warning about it. And even some of the Irish were like, "What are you talking about?" Like, oh, good Lord. Ivor Cummins, and as an example, we both spoke at the same thing down in Argentina maybe 7 months ago. And so I was talking about Ireland just like 7 months ago. It was like November, I think, something like that, in 2024. And I talked with this group, and Ivor was there. He also spoke, and I talked about how bad Ireland was. And then, then I went to dinner with Ivor a couple times and talked with him quite a lot. He had no idea. He is Irish and lives in Ireland, right? But now he totally gets it. Now it's become suddenly. I told him, I said, Ivor, I mean, the thing is Ireland, it's not that big, but you live in a part obviously where it's not intense yet. But the bathtub is filling up, and they are not coming as migrants. This is an invasion, and they are actually coming to kill you, right? This is actually genocide, right? This is not. So like that useful idiot up in Chicago, who is it? Is that the mayor?
Yeah, Mayor
Who's that guy?
Brandon Johnson. Mayor
Yeah,
Brandon Johnson.
I mean, he's a temporarily useful idiot, right? He's and it's just temporary, because you got to keep in mind, people like that, they don't have a place on the ark. There's no place that is reserved for them. He's temporarily useful, but this invasion is specifically to kill Americans, right? White,
Yeah.
black, and but they're making different groups think, hey, yeah, we're
Yes.
in charge now. Oh, dude, they're gonna wipe you out, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you go to a certain point, and like the Chinese who are coming in intensely, they have biological weapons. They have every sort of weapon that we have, right? They have every sort of technology that we have. They can design, make weapons that. Anyway, at the end of the day, drones, everything else under the sun. These people who think that they're protected classes, they're just useful idiots in a never-ending war. War is what I do. War is what all these books behind me. I happen to be redoing my library now. That's why I got, it's a mess. And next time we come on, you'll see I have my bookshelves up. But this is all about war. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I study, right? This is what I do. This when I'm looking at information, the highest form of warfare is information war, right?
Yeah.
And everything is subordinate to that. Now, the rocket fuel of a subset of information war is psychological operations, right? And a rocket fuel for psychological operations is intoxicants, right? Whether that be dope or of many sorts, alcohol, doesn't matter. Prescriptions, it doesn't matter. It's intoxicants. It's been like that for millennia, right? At least for, we know, I mean, in my old books, it pops up all the time when I'm not even looking for it. I'm like, there it is again. It's like whether it's opium or alcohol, whatever, it doesn't matter. And so you see the Chinese moving to the United States and setting up dope grows all over the place. I wrote a series of dispatches from Afghanistan in 2006 called The Perfect Evil, talking about the amount of opium that was there. It was unbelievable. It's like Wizard of Oz level of opium. Wizard of Oz, when going up to the yellow brick road. Yellow brick road, by the way, was actually gold. I mean, that was about the gold and silver standard. Actually, it's what the whole movie was about. Things like that. But anyway, it was subtle though. But so the opium, they fall asleep in the opium. The Latin name for opium poppy is Papaver somniferum. It's sleeping poppy, right? And so and so this is the opium has been used like alcohol all over the world. What I'm getting to is a lot of these main influencers like Joe Rogan, I call him Doper Joe Rogan, He gets on a show and, you know, he smokes dope in front of millions of young people, right? And he gets
Yeah.
on there with Rocket Guy and they're smoking dope together, right? And that was a direct attack. That was when I was like, hey, these guys are actually enemy operators. They're not just stupid, because they're not stupid. They're not stupid. They're smart guys, obviously. You know, Elon Musk and Joe Rogan are smart guys. Why would they smoke dope in front of millions of young people? That's not cool. That's an actual attack. That's modeling to smoke dope. Now, again, if you're designing an information war, if I were trying to dismantle a foreign country, I would start with dope, alcohol, whatever. It would be intoxicants. I would, if I were the devil, as Paul Harvey said, what was that,
Yes.
1963
Yeah,
or
that was
65? Where he
perfect.
starts off, if I were the devil, it's like in the
Yeah.
opening paragraph, he would do this, right? And I love that audio that he did. If
Yeah.
I
Oh,
were the
yeah.
devil, and so I went over to Thailand. Keep in mind, I used to have an office in Thailand. I've been all over Thailand. If you web search my name in Thailand, you'll see me flying around with the prime minister, that sort of stuff, in the jet, you know, that sort of thing. I mean, I from low to high, I'm out either with the farmers or, you know, all over that place. I've been all over Thailand. I'm very familiar with it. Thailand is very important. Thailand is the hyphen in Indo-Pacific security, right? That's why I've been all over that place. Like, it's funny when I've been all over the rest of the world, but as soon as I'm in Thailand, they're like, "Oh, you're there for the bars and the girls." I'm like,
Yeah.
"You didn't say that when I was in Afghanistan and Iraq and
Yeah.
Nepal and India and China." But suddenly you go to Thailand, it's for the girls, right? It's this kind of kookiness that's out there. But
as
it's
long as they're
actually
not
it's very
saying that you're
important.
there for the lady boys, you know, I'd worry if they were saying
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And interestingly, when you talk to the Thai police, you know, I've been out with the Thai police a lot. Like, for instance, you know, a lot. I like, you know, going to training with them and that sort of thing. You know, explosives training and all that stuff, counterterrorism training. I've been out with the Thai police a lot. And I've asked, you know, occasionally I'll ask, you know, what's the biggest dangers around here, the human dangers? It's always lady boys. Lady
Wow.
boys. They got
Really?
like the emotions of a woman and the strength of a man. It's game on, man. And so I'm always polite to the lady boys. But I don't want to get kicked in the head. But
Yeah.
I love Thailand though. But what I'm getting to is I took Masako Ganaha to Thailand last year, and I showed her. I'm like, look at all these dope stores. They just issued like 9,300 licenses for cannabis in the last about 3 years, right? Or almost four now. And so that includes retail, distribution, wholesale, and growing it, right?
Hmm.
That I know what's going on. I've studied Thailand in detail and I know how this works. They're splitting Thailand apart. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to say some stuff, but you got to keep some of it in mind because it'll come together at the end.
Sure.
Like, there's something called the Thaiification program. And after World War II, you know, King Rama the Ninth, who was an incredible king, he was King Rama the Ninth of Thailand. He was supported by the United States. And so we started this thing called the Thaiification program. This is important. The Thaiification, we're trying to get all these disparate groups that speak all these different languages. There's a lot of different languages in Thailand, a lot of different cultures, different ethnicities. Like when you land at Suvarnabhumi Airport or wherever you land and you look around, you're going to see a lot of different faces, and they're all Thai people and they're all proud of being Thai, right? Because, you know, to pull those people together, King Rama the Ninth did the Thaiification program because in anthropological warfare, you know, human warfare, if you want to do
Yeah.
anthropological warfare, you study the firmware of all these cultures, right? And you see all these books, those right there are all about Native Americans, right? 44 of them, right? It's all about their different cultures, right? And so anyway, at the end of the day, you study the firmware of each culture, and if you want them to get along, you find ways to make them get along. Like you put a spotlight on things that make them like each other. You get them to speak the same language. You can still speak your other language, but you need to speak Thai, right? So
Yeah.
they did this Thaiification program where everybody should speak Thai. You can speak Lao if you want. You can speak Khmer. It doesn't matter. Hmong, you can speak it. It's good. Keep speaking it. It's good. And do your own culture, do your own music. That's great. But everybody should speak Thai, and you should be able to write it very well. And you should be able to speak it very clearly, right?
Yeah.
And you should be proud of your ability to write Thai and speak Thai. And so they did this. They built that up and they built them up. They built the Thais up with a strong sense of I am Thai, right? And that's one of the things I love about Thailand is the people are strong and they love Thailand, right? And they love King Rama IX. Unfortunately, he's passed away, but he was way against drugs, right? So one of the things in Thailand is they used to grow a lot of opium, especially in the north, in the triangle area, right? And so the the Chinese were using opium in the communist insurgency to try to overthrow the monarchy. So we were up there with our special forces and our CIA and all that stuff. They were up in Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai. And that's where a lot of them retired to. That's where I had my office later in Chiang Mai, right? And so they were working up there with the Thais. And the King Rama IX, he had a lot of moral authority. So King Rama IX said, listen, we are Thai people. We're a proud people. We don't do opium. So a lot of the people just stopped because they loved him, right? They're like, I don't want to disappoint, His Majesty the King Rama the Ninth, King Bhumipol, right? And so they just stopped. But for the others that didn't stop, I'm going somewhere with this. They had an agricultural program. They studied every inch of that land, man. I mean, you should see some of the things I've seen in Thailand. And so they found what grows best in the places where these other things grow, like opium, like flowers, like coffee. I'm drinking Thai coffee right now. I'm drinking Thai coffee because I'm fighting against that opium. It's on my own. It makes me feel good to fight it in every way I can. But what they did was they grew the hill people never grew opium up there. They never grew coffee. They grew opium and things like that. So the king said, if you agree to grow flowers or coffee or something else, we'll make sure you got a market. We'll definitely buy it from you at a higher price than the opium. And then that got a lot. So first of all, he said, we just don't do it. That stopped a lot of people. And then he said, and we'll help you grow other stuff. And that stopped most of the rest. And for those who wanted to keep doing it, well, we sent Green Berets and Thai Rangers and killed them, right? And went out there and shot them up, right? And it's like game on. So it's like, please don't do this. Please don't do this. We're going to help you not do it. And here we are. We're fighting, and it knocked it in the head, right? So they didn't have very much of that stuff. And the Thais, they do a lot of alcohol, that's for sure. But they at least knocked it. And then it started, amphetamine started coming. But now they actually legalized it, and they started to push that. They're eroding the young people. They're making the young people in Thailand not proud to be Thai anymore, right? They're making them not proud of it. And so now let's go to Panama real quick. The same thing with Panama. Go ahead, sir.
All right, isn't this happening all like United States? I mean, not being proud of our is it just Thailand? I mean, America, they're doing the same thing to our kids, right?
Same exact thing, anthropological warfare. So the story that I'm telling you is an allegory. I mean, the things that I'm telling you are, everybody can fill in the blanks. If you're from Netherlands, this is happening to you in Netherlands. You can't even say Holland anymore. If you're from Japan, where I'm at right now, I was giving a speech here in Japan in about, 2014 or 15 or something. And I said, I was a group of bunch of historians out in the audience and writers and things. And it wasn't a general audience. It was kind of a specialized thing. And I said, I travel around the world a lot. And I ask a bucket of questions, in different places. Like one will be, do you trust your army? Do you trust your police? Do you trust your courts? Right? Because I'm getting atmospherics, right? To get a pulse, right? And so I'll just ask many people the same thing, right? Are you proud of your country? That sort of thing. Just be direct about it. So in any case, so there I was giving this speech, which is probably online. And I said, I've only found 3 countries in the world that don't like Japan. And so I asked the audience, what do you think those are? Right. I don't think many Japanese do audience interactivity, but I did it. And they're like, Korea. And I'm like, okay, actually most Koreans like Japan, but whatever. But yeah, Korea. And they're like, China. And I'm like, actually most Chinese, I think, like Japan too, but they definitely got a huge information war, this anti-Japanese. I spent a lot of time in China researching it. But they couldn't get the third one, right? They're like, North Korea. And I'm like, okay, North and South Korea is together. Okay. What's the other country, right? And they couldn't get it. And I'm like, it's Japan, right? They almost did a standing ovation, right? Because Japanese don't like Japan, right? Because you've been trained not to like Japan. This is the most incredible country in the world. And yet, I mean, it's up there with the United States, right? I mean, this is an unbelievable country, especially with the lack of resources they have. But then who else hates themselves? And I spent years in Germany. Ich spreche Deutsch eigentlich, ich spreche fließend Deutsch, right? I speak German fluently, right? I went to German school, DLI in the Army and all that stuff, right? And all that Green Beret stuff. And, and I lived in Europe for about 6 years, about 4 in Germany and a couple in Poland, right? And so I've been all over Europe, but, and I found that Germans don't like Germany because after the World War II, we did these information wars to make Germans and Japanese ashamed of themselves,
Yeah.
right?
They hate their own culture.
Yeah, and exactly. So we did it. It was called the War Guilt Information Program. That was the name of it. The War Guilt Information. You can look it up. War Guilt Information Program. We burned a lot of books here in Japan, right? We had I think it was 2,500 books that were on the list. I'm sorry, I've forgotten that. How many? I think it was like 2,500. And if you found them, they were to turn them into these certain places, and they disappeared somewhere. They burned them, or they did something with them. Maybe they're buried somewhere. I don't know. But at the end of the day, we did the opposite with Thailand. We wanted Thailand to be proud of themselves. We did the opposite with Panama. With Panama, we wanted people to be proud of Panama because we made Panama. The United States made Panama. And we started because when we wanted to build the canal, it was part of Colombia, and Colombia is like, "No, you're not going to make the canal." And we're like, "Okay, we'll make Panama." So we made Panama, and we sponsored a revolution. And on November 3rd, 1903, the Republic of Panama was born. We immediately made a treaty that we will have 10-mile stretch of and 5 miles on each side of the proposed canal. We're going to build this canal that the French went bankrupt on. And because we were arrogant enough to think we could do it because we had the most badass engineers, unbelievable. And so somehow we did it. And so we had that 10-mile stretch of land that goes through Panama, but the rest of it's the Republic of Panama. Now, we did the opposite there. We did what we did in Thailand, not what we did in Germany and Japan. We wanted security for the canal rest on having a stable Panama, right? We want everybody to speak Spanish. I'm out with the Indians all the time, man. I'm out with the Imbra Indians. I got like 8 messages or 10 messages this morning from one of the Imbra Indian leaders, right? He must be up late at night, right? and so there's 7 major tribes there, right? And so what I'm getting to is and what he was sending me was this video of this other Indian tribe, the Nobe Bugla. They're fighting back at the United Nations, right? Thank you. You're welcome. And so the so the Indians out there are, I spend a lot of time with the Indians, right? And I'm always telling the Indians, United Nations are coming to take your land. Here's the example. Here's what they're doing. Now they're starting to fight back, right? And so, but what I'm getting to is, with all these 7 Indian tribes, like the Kuna Indians, nobody could get along with the Indians, with the Kuna Indians. Nobody could get along with the Kuna Indians. They're like really tough people, and they didn't want to. There's a book about them called "The People Who Refused to Kneel" or something like that. But Americans got along with them, like nobody else could. But Americans, we're like, hey, you want to go to America? We're taking them to America. Let them go to university. Take them back to the jungle. You can stay in America if you want. You can go back to the jungle. It doesn't matter. So our ancestors hired a bunch of the Kuna. I'm out with the Kuna all the time, man. They're tough people. Right? And one old man, he's like 83 years old. He was a village chief. This is like, I don't know, probably 40 miles from the nearest road, right? I had to take an airplane out and a boat and all this anyway. So I'm in his village, right? And so, and he's like 83. So we're walking around. He's showing me where the aliens are tramping through and his people are getting sick. And he's barefoot. He's super fit. And he points his finger at me. He's about 83. He's a very small guy. And he goes, "Don't you take that vaccine." He's pointing at my chest. And I'm like, "No, sir. No, sir. I'm not going to take the death jab." He's like, "Good." and he goes, when the Center Front, which is their border patrol, when they came to my village to give this poison, I said, "Go from my village." And he was all angry. And then I was like, "Good, because your village is very healthy, except for these aliens coming through, making the children sick with the water and then chopping down the coconut trees because they can't climb the coconut trees for coconuts." And he goes, "Yes." And then he goes, "And why are you in Ukraine?" I said, "I'm not in Ukraine. I'm in the Darien Gap with you." He said, "You know what I'm saying." And I was like, "Okay." I think it's stupid too. But anyway, I'm here to talk about the aliens. But anyway, that's the kind of tough people they are. I mean, Americans I love people like that. You know what I mean? He's like, he's walking me out in the jungle, showing me everything. He's like, "Don't you take that vaccine." And, but some of the other Kuna actually what I'm getting to is all these different tribes, they all speak Spanish because we wanted everybody to speak Spanish, right?
Yeah.
And so we put schools out there, U.S. Special Forces and Civil Affairs. We got soccer fields. You go in the deepest part of the jungle in some village out there. I've been to probably 30 of them, right? Villages out there, right? And I've been to a lot of those villages, like, well, about 30. And so, I know a mayor of 28 of them, right? And so Francisco Agape is his name. I took him to Washington, actually. And but Francisco, you know, when you see these schools that we built and all these soccer fields, every village has a soccer field. You can be way out in the Darien Gap. There's a soccer field. And notice when you go to a soccer field, it's the perfect size for helicopters to land, right? So we help the kids learn Spanish. And if you want to go to Panama City, we took a lot of them to university, like Francisco. He went to school in Oregon, and then he moved back to the Darien. I said,
So
you know what? Go ahead.
Flash forward, isn't that what the Chinese are doing? What we did 100 years ago?
Oh yeah, straight up. I mean,
Right.
the British have done it. The Russians have done it. It's an old game.
They're doing with their Silk Road and all this other bullshit they're doing all over the world, right?
That's exactly right. It's the same game. And that's why I'm telling these stories, because everybody can see that's what's happening. So when you're doing anthropological warfare, you study their firmware, right? You study it in detail, which means reading a lot and going out and spending time with all these people and reading a lot and understanding, kind of getting a feel for it, right? And then if you want them to get along, you focus on things that make them like each other. Like, hey, let's have a food festival where you show your food and we have our food, right?
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff. We have music and we'll play your music. Hey, I'll try to play your music. And so people start getting married together. And if you get married into another tribe, you don't want to go to war with them. It's like, hey, my family's that tribe too, you know. It's like, you know, but the Kuna and the Embera, they had a those are two tribes I'm out with a lot. They had a genocidal war between each other. Now they get along because we help them get along, because we want Panama to be stable. Now, what I'm getting to is, when you study these things, anthropological warfare, and if you focus on the things that make people get along. Now, if you want them to fight, you just reverse the polarity.
Yes.
You focus on the reason. You focus on, and that's what's now happening in Panama.
And
that's
America.
what and America for sure. That's why I'm telling this story, because all these stories I'm telling you, you see it in your neighborhood. You see, like this guy, you know, the mayor, who's an idiot. I mean, he's a useful idiot. And keep in mind, he's fungible. They stamp those guys out. When he's gone, there'll be another guy. They're condoms, right? They're condoms for the real players, right? And so, and so at the end of the day, he probably thinks he has a seat at the table because they treat him so good. Oh, Mr. Mayor, whatever, we'll get you a car, Mr. Mayor. But at the end of the day, he'll end up dead, because they'll end up. That's how this sort of war goes.
There's a mayor in Chicago who'll probably end up in jail.
Yeah. Like, but that's how this sort of warfare goes, though. They'll use the useful idiots to do the things that they're going to do, and they set conditions. The enemy will set conditions to, like, we got so many people setting conditions that are doing it on their own schedule. Like the Chinese, you know, they're growing the dope everywhere, and they're advertising the dope everywhere. And we've got the of course, the Zionists are running a lot of this, by the way, openly, highest in Catholic Charities, Lutheran services. Obviously, United Nations is doing huge. United Nations is the big player, right? And I hope you're not smoking a joint.
No, he's not. He's a cigarette
Good.
smoker.
Good, because I would be unhappy, and that's to put it mildly. At the end of the day, the dope thing that you see that the Chinese are growing everywhere, like in Oklahoma and Oregon and Maine. They've taken a huge part of Maine, and you know, and they've got their distribution networks, right?
Could you clarify on that? Because I heard you on the show, you know. So that's the first time I heard about it. When you're saying they're growing dope, I mean, I'm assuming it's illegal. And could you kind of elaborate on what you mean by what you just said about the Chinese are growing dope? Here in the
big time. They're doing it right in the open, man. I mean, it's like Tucker Carlson. You know, I know he's upset because I attack his good buddy Joe Rogan and all that. I went on Tucker Carlson's show. He's a good interviewer, Tucker is. But you know, and I'm like, listen, many people have said I can introduce you to Joe Rogan. I'm like, I'm not going on Joe Rogan. You know, and people constantly are like, what, don't you understand? You could reach all those millions of people. And I'm like, trust me, I get it. Trust me, I totally get it, right? It's like I can do the math. And but at the same time, Joe Rogan's got a big tree and I got a little hatchet. You see Jerome Menard that worked for Garda World, I got him fired. Jerome McChrystal, that was not Rolling Stone that got him fired. That was me, right? So I mean, and I did those two simultaneously, right? It's persistence, it's knowing how to chop, when to chop, how to do the blade, and eventually timber. It takes a while sometimes. Sometimes it's quick, like a machete on a twig, and sometimes it just takes years, right? And you can do it though with persistent pressure.
You made a comment about them smoking weed on the show, right? And if I remember growing up, when you'd have guys drinking like Dean Martin on TV, that was never alcohol. They weren't even allowed to have alcohol. It was supposed to be like tea and stuff to look like alcohol, right? And so now it's kind of odd that they're able to smoke marijuana. And we grew up and they weren't allowed to legally drink alcohol on TV, but now they're smoking weed on all these shows.
If I were the devil.
Yeah.
Right. And you know what the old people used to say when we were young and they sounded crazy, like that music that y'all listen to is really bad. And you're like, no, it's not. It's really cool. Right. And then, but when you study information war like I've done for years, I've written 3 books on Chinese information war. The books are only in Japanese, actually, because I've been working to wake up Japan, because Japan is our most important partner in the world. Although Israel would have us believe that little anchor is our biggest ally in the world. They're our biggest backstabbing professional victim predator in the world, right? So I mean, at the end of the day, the drugs. The drugs are the primary weapon, right? And again, if I were the devil. Now, one of the things, having studied information war, one thing is very interesting to me is a lot of people have brought up you must have PTSD, because a lot of people realize how much combat I did. Like with me, it was in photos and videos. You could see it on TV. You could see I'm in close combat many, many times. And there's actual photos of like people right in front of me getting shot while they're standing up and bullets splashing right by me and stuff. Many, many times, right? I did that for years and I don't have PTSD. I also have a thin layer of willingness to put up with bullshit. So that some people call that PTSD. It's like, no, that's war. When you're in war, you don't have time for bullshit. You won't put up with bullshitters. You want accurate information. You don't want pie in the sky all the time. I need facts, right? 24 karat gold facts. But when it comes to why don't I have PTSD? I don't do drugs. I don't do alcohol. I don't take any prescription drugs. I don't take jack shit, right? The worst thing I do is coffee. And I know some people say it's quite bad. I should stop. But I would take breaks and I would walk up to like Mount Everest and stuff, right? I would walk around, go all over the place, walk out not to the top, just to the bottom. I walked up to Mount Everest a couple times, just to the bottom of it, right? It took a few weeks actually. And I'd just go walk around out in the Himalaya or go walk in the Appalachians or whatever. I'd just go for a walk. You know what you need? Good sleep and sunshine, and go for a walk. And you have to get sleep. Sleep is your number one primary medicine, right? No alcohol, no drugs, no alcohol, no drugs. Get your sleep, go for a walk in the sunshine, and don't, whatever you do, I said all that to set the table for the big one here. Number 1 is drugs, obviously, and alcohol. Your intoxicants is the number 1 rocket fuel for psychological operations. Number 2 is music. Music is highly weaponized, right? And music can change your feelings instantly, right? Now, if you listen to music with a critical ear, those old people that used to talk crazy about that music's poison, turns out they were right, and my grandmother used to say, one day you children will be buying bottled water out of the store. And I'm like, Granny, we're never going to buy bottled water out of the store. That's just lunacy. Right? Every time I open a bottle of water, I think of my grandmother, Granny Alex Jones, telling me stuff like that. And it all turned out to be true. She's like, Michael, don't you understand that music is not good for you? And I'm like, why? But then when you start to listen to it, listen to country music, which I've always loved. And you listen to it, though, it's always like, my dog got drunk and ran off with my woman or something. You know what I mean? And my pickup truck got swept away in a flood or something. It's like it's all sadness. It's all even the upbeat. songs like Heads, California, and all that stuff. It really makes you happy. But it's really like, hey, I met her in the bar. Here we go. Because it's all about, it's weaponized, right? The same people who invest in heavily in that music invest in prisons, right? I mean, this is actual big boy level warfare. This is big stuff. This isn't
What are you
small
talking about?
level warfare,
Correctional
right?
Corporation of America, CCA. Is that what you're talking about?
I mean, I mean, I don't know all the details, but it's quite. I've been some of the books I've gotten recently though are about music, about the music industry. I wish I could reach back
Yeah,
and find it, but
I'm
I'd show
familiar
you some of them. But I've been
Corporations of America is like one of the biggest prisons for profit, federal prison, a lot of federal prisons that are operated for Correctional Corporation of America. Look that up.
this is the sort of warfare hitting us with music, hitting us with, you know, look, the rap music's all about mistreating women, beating women, killing people, killing cops, doing drugs. I mean, they destroyed black culture who was really
Yeah.
rising up. They were rising up, and people didn't want that. Some people didn't want that. So they were
I know
specifically, I used to think blacks were crazy when they told me that. When I was young, they would say that, and I'm like,
yeah.
where do you come up with this stuff? Then I get older and I see it, and I'm like, they were right about that too. You know,
Yeah. So I know you're painting a broad picture here, and I'm definitely following you. Could you talk about a little slight pivot to the Darien Gap? So I know what I know you painted this broad picture, right, about the things that are affecting us globally, not just America, not just Japan, everywhere, right? Panama, and then
Mhm.
what's going on in the Darien Gap in Panama? What's going on in Panama and the Darien Gap, and how the Chinese and how it's like a pipeline to the destruction of America.
Yeah, I could talk about Panama for like 1 week. And so you'll have to tell me when it's enough. So, Panama is one of the most strategic places on planet Earth, especially for us, the United States. It is that level of important. I always point right here. It's that level of important, right? That's the reason we built the Panama Canal at huge expense, right? There were people that wanted to build a path between the seas. And the best book I've read on actually the Panama Canal, which would be a lot of books, but the best one is called The Path Between the Seas, right? That one everybody should read. If you want to understand, like in a nutshell, that's up there with Creature from Jekyll Island on importance, right? And so Creature from Jekyll Island, unbelievable book. I'm going to be on with anyway, at the end of the day, the Panama Canal or Panama, let's say, even without the canal, Panama would still be important to us, right? Like for instance, now they're going to build a road through the Darien Gap to Colombia. That'll connect North and South America, through Panama, right? Through Colombia and Panama. And so I'm the one that found the bridges. Even members of the Panamanian government at one point were like, no, we're not, building anything down there. I'm like, yeah, you are. And I was up in Panama City talking with some members of the government. And they're like, no, we're not doing that. You're mistaken. I'm like, look, you see the mud on my boots? I was at the bridges this morning, and I drove up from the Darien Gap to talk with you about who's building those bridges. You know what I mean? And they're clearly going to connect Colombia. And so, in any case, now they know it. It's been all over the news now in Panama.
Who's they that's connecting and building
It's
those?
it's clear that it's China, though China is masking it. Like for instance, there's a
knew that
book.
Right, but I wanted,
Yeah.
I knew that.
It's
But go ahead.
yeah,
Yep.
it's clear that it's China, but they're
Yep.
masking it, right? And so because they've actually got a book, the Belt and Road Initiative Panama, right? And they've got a map that goes right through the Panama, right through the Darien Gap, right? And so that road goes right up, the China Bridge. You've heard some, especially me, talk about so much in over the Panama Canal. It's the fourth bridge. There's 3 bridges over the Panama Canal, right? We built the first one called the Thatcher Ferry Bridge. We opened it in 1962, right before Paul Harvey did "If I Were the Devil." And so it was we opened the Thatcher Ferry Bridge in 1962. Then, in a fit of information war, they later renamed it to the Bridge of Americas, right? But it's the Thatcher Ferry Bridge because it used to be a ferry. That was the first bridge over the Panama Canal, 1962. The canal opened in 1914, right? And so then 2 more bridges were built. Now they're building a 4th one. Now, what's the strategic interest of that 4th bridge? Well, first of all, traffic is getting heavy there anyway. There's a lot of traffic jams, but that they're also building a train, and the 2 ports that are run by Chinese called the Hutchison Whampoa, right? So in Balboa, on the Panama City side of the Panama Canal, Pacific side, that's where one of the Hutchison ports is, right? The other one's on the Atlantic side. They're connected by a railroad, Panama Canal Railway. And so that Hutchison port on the Pacific side is where that bridge lands, right? So that bridge goes right to their port, right? That they've leased. That Hutchison, China, BlackRock said they're going to take it, and all the Americans are like, yeah, 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 and they're like, what do you think, Michael? Look, Trump's doing it, and I'm like, ceasefire. We'll wait and see, because we see this crap all the time. Now look, nothing's happened, right? China said, nope, you're not going to take it, right? And it hasn't been taken. But now when I talk with Americans talk, they think that we fixed everything in Panama. I can
Right.
tell you what, while I was there, Secretary of State Rubio came, Hegseth came, he stayed in the same hotel I was at. Then the director of CIA came. That was not in the news at all. And then I don't think it hit any Twitter or anything except when I said it. So he was there. And then what's her name came, Department of Homeland Security. And so, they're actors and actresses. They're fungible. So I don't take them seriously, other than who's playing the part of Director of Homeland Security now. Right. And so, and because they're not serious people. But so what I'm getting to is China has not relinquished, just because BlackRock waves its magic wand. And that, and keep in mind, BlackRock and China are this close, right? They're this close, right?
Yes.
So it's not like these are separate entities and that sort of thing. And China's still controlling those two. They don't control the canal. The Panama Canal is actually operated by the Panama Canal. There's a separate entity from the Panama government that runs the Panama Canal, but it's Panamanians that actually run it, right? They do actually run the canal, so they're not lying when they say we run the canal. Panama's being truthful; they run the canal. That's like, who runs I-10 or I-75 or I-95.
Yeah,
right? But all those little exits, the ports on either side, of which there's 7, right? There's run by different concessions, right? And the railway is privately owned as well. In the railway, we also opened the railway. When did we open that railway? Was it 1862? I've forgotten. I'm sorry, or maybe 1857 or something. I don't remember. But anyway, we opened the railway. No. We opened that in about 1850, right? Because all the gold rush that was going on in California. Panama suddenly is super important. It was always important ever since the late 1400s, right around 1500, when everybody started to show up and say, hey, we can get to the Pacific over here, right? And so but when the gold rush in the 1840s happened in California, all of a sudden Americans, everybody's flooding to California. America almost tipped over. Everybody's running to the left coast, right? And so and so you can either go fight Comanches and Apaches and everybody else and grizzly bears to get out to California, or you can go around South America, which is not a lot of fun. I mean, it's an incredibly dangerous trip, and the seas down there are incredibly dangerous. And or you can go walk across the jungle and die of yellow fever and get killed by Indians with poison darts. The Indians I'm out with today, right? And then so they built that railway. You know how much it cost for a person to go across the railway in 1867? I've got a book about the railway, and it was 1 ounce of gold. It took 1 ounce of gold to go on like a 50-mile, like a 50-mile train ride. 1 ounce of gold. That's like
incredible.
More than $3,000, man.
Yeah.
Today, and it was 5 ounces for a horse, right? It was a whole ounce for one adult. That's how valuable it was. It was the most valuable little railroad in the world there for a while. It's still incredibly important because that railway down in Panama across the isthmus, it's actually a transcontinental railway. It's like 50 miles long, but it's transcontinental. And it connects those two Hutchison ports, right? It connects those two ports, and China has both of those ports. That's extremely important because you can bring these giant ships in and don't transit the canal, and you just like, it's like a drop box. So you can take and drop off 1,000 containers or something, and they go on the train, and then you pick up and so see these container ships, they do like a mail route, you might say, right? They're doing like a steady route. They just do their route and they come back. So they'll be, without going through the canal, without transiting, they just drop stuff off. So when you go to the Hutchison ports on each side of the canal, there's like, I don't know, it's got to be tens of thousands of containers up there. I'm out there all the time. It's like ton of containers. And so, but you'll see the railways going 24/7. Sometimes I get a hotel right beside that railway at the Holiday Inn there, and Ciudad del Saber, City of Knowledge. That's where the UN has their headquarters. But but the end of the day, that those two ports, the Hutchison ports, on each one on the Pacific, one on the Atlantic side, and then the train that connects them, that's Boardwalk and Park Place, and that's your best railroad, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Because when you can connect those two, even if the canal were interrupted, you would still be able to do business as long as that train's open, right? You'd still be in business. It would be greatly reduced, but at one point I was out. That fourth bridge, by the way, again, is being built right to the Hutchison Port on the Pacific side, so that'll go right to where the trains are, right? And then there's a train coming through. It's a local train for now, but later it'll be a big one. That'll be a train that goes all the way from South America. I mean, Masako and I were just down in Argentina in late 2024, and we were looking at the Belt and Road Initiative corridor down there, the bioceanic corridor that goes from Brazil through Argentina and over to Chile, right out to the sea. And so we got up on a little electric train, and that the Chinese are doing as a, I don't know, a show train or something. And they actually had a solar powered train, they called it.
Huh.
And yeah, I mean, it's not like it had just solar powered on the roof. It had a big array out in the desert because it's high desert and dry out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is global. What you're looking at here is not just Panama. You can't understand these things by standing still. Like, I've been across the entire U.S. southern border. It took many months to do it. I was out with Border Patrol all the time, and when you ask the small percentage of Border Patrol that really pay attention to what's going on, those guys are worth their weight in gold, right? And because they pay attention to the global picture and they get to see it at the tactical level. But most of them don't pay much attention. And when you ask them what's going on, they're like, well, the Mexican cartels are, flooding these people up. But if they're saying it's the cartels doing that, they have no idea what's going on. They're like they're like a monkey trying to do calculus, right? But because it's not the Mexican cartels. I mean, that they are just the last stop.
Yeah,
and I've said to them too, I'm like, you're loading the buses up. Are you in the Mexican cartel? I mean, you're loading the buses up and you're sending them in deeper into the United States. I mean,
yeah.
Unless Border Patrol is Mexican cartel, we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what about talk about the hard route, the easy route, right? And the Chinese and how they take the easy route, and explain that from the Darien Gap and how it's leading to America.
Now, the really easy route doesn't even include Panama or the Darien, right? They just come on student visas and they go to Canada and that sort of thing. They go, or some go on vacation in Mexico, like Cancun, and we know some of their snakeheads, which is what we call coyotes. And we got their names and numbers and all that. So they start up there. But the ones who have like $20,000 or $30,000 to put down, those are the poor ones. They're going to have to go through the Darien Gap. Now, the Afghans actually pay the same amount as the Chinese, about $20,000 or $30,000, because I talked with tons of Afghans and tons of Nepalese. They all pay this about the same, right? But when you in the Darien Gap, there's various different routes, and one of them is much safer. That goes through more Kuna Indian territory, and since they pay the Indians up front, they actually take a boat from up in Colombia, and they'll go right to Kuna villages, and they'll skip past a lot of the dangerous cartel jungle areas. They're still going with cartel. They've just been paid off. What's cartel? Cartel is, it's like a amorphous blend of stuff. But they go with the Kuna Indians, and the Kuna will actually carry some of them. If you pay enough, you'll have a porter, right? If you pay enough, at some point you'll have a donkey or a horse carrying some of your stuff in some areas. And then they come through from the Kuna area into the Imbara area, and then it's a much easier route. Like, I never hear of Chinese dying on that route. Hold on, ceasefire on that. There was a high seas one day, and a bunch of them drowned in the ocean. But it wasn't like they were murdered or something. They just took off when the boat, the guy was trying to make money and took off in high seas, and they drowned. But otherwise, on that route, it's pretty safe. But on the other route, the dangerous route, you got to go over that. First of all, you have to deal with a lot of serious, no kidding, murderers out there. Rapists and murderers it's unbelievable. And then, you wouldn't believe it. And then a lot of them fall off the Montaña de la Muerta, the mountain of death. And then they have to go through the 7 crossings, all these rivers. There's so many flash floods out there. Like, I was doing a video one night and I put it on my Substack recently on that video. I was out. I put it up maybe 5 days ago on my Substack, and it's a video that I made one night in the Darien. I was alone. It was a full moon. I was by the river. It was about midnight. You can see the moon's way up there in the sky. You know, at midnight, it's almost right overhead, right? And so, and I say on my video, about 160 people just drowned from flash flood. That's normal. And the funny thing is I had forgotten about that until I saw the video. There's so many flash floods, so many people die. I literally had forgotten about 160 people that died because there is so much. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like one group came through. It was 40 people. Well, actually, only 20 came through because the other 20 got washed away in a flash flood. Right. So half of them. I mean, it's like it's got to be many thousands died just in the last 4 years just from flash floods because the people sleep next to the rivers and they don't realize like what just happened in Texas. That's like weekly, man. I mean, that's like there's these
Normal activity.
micro.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like I go up in the jungle all the time, and I go up and you can see I've taken Ben Berkwam and Brett Weinstein and Chris Martinson and congressmen. I've taken like 60 people up there, right? I just took Laura Logan up there, you know, obviously, Ann Vandersteel, Masako Gana. I think tons, right? And you can see where the sides of the river are just trees blown down from the last flash flood, you know, or, you know, just stuff. It's unbelievable how dangerous those mountains are with those rains. It's a rainforest and those mountains are quite, you know, intense. And so you get just constant flat. And when you ask the Indians, I've asked many different Indians the same question. How do you know when a flash flood is coming? You know, because I'm always looking for like, you know, secret Indian knowledge or something like a certain bird flies upside down or something. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we just hear it. You know, when we hear it, or you know, you start seeing certain things in the water, like you know, a bunch of trees floating down. You know, you run. Yeah, they're just like you run as fast as you can. You just run away from the river as fast as you can uphill. And so that's their drill, right? And so what I'm getting to is it is wildly dangerous, but the Chinese take a different route. So not a lot of the Chinese die out there because they got more money and they're more sophisticated. The Chinese, now the Haitians, after all this time, when they come through, they still come through helter skelter, no plan, no nothing, right? You know what I mean? But they never quite get a plan together. But the Chinese, when they first started coming through there, it was like in 2s and 3s. I've got a lot of the records. I got records of over 1 million that came through, right? Not Chinese, but I've got records of about 40,000, I think, Chinese. Anyway, I've got a lot of Chinese that came through. But I've got records of about 1.05 million people in total that came through under Biden's time, right? But I'm missing about 300,000 or 400,000 records. So I think about 1.4 million came through under is my extrapolation from that. But in any case, I think that was just the Darien. That doesn't include all these other routes, right?
Yeah, the Death Train, Mexico City, or anything else. Yeah,
Panama, in Canada and all that, and Bahamas, and so, at the end of the day, it's intense. The Chinese, they started off in 2s and 3s. First of all, I was physically seeing them. It'd be like, hey, we had Chinese come through last week. You know, it was like, hey, it was a Chinese sighting. Then it gets to the point where like, oh, there was 10 Chinese today. Oh, there was 20 Chinese today. The Chinese are increasing. Then you get to the point where it's like, you know, a couple hundred Chinese. Then you get to the point where, I mean, it's a lot because they get corporate about it. The Chinese, they're very organized. Like Anthony Rubin, muckraker.com.
Yeah.
Anthony's awesome. I took him to Darien and then he went back through alone with his brother. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, his brother got kidnapped. They
both got kidnapped.
Yeah, we had him on right after that happened on my program, and we were going through all the videos he had of these like professionally built buildings that the Chinese migrants were staying, all the flyers and instructions, everything else that they had that were up there. I don't remember on which side of the Darien Gap now, but you know, these were legit Panama side. These were legit trail buildings out of like shipping containers. But he'd go in, rows of bunk beds, and it's all Chinese financed. That's right.
No, actually, those are financed by the United States.
Oh, even worse.
I've been in those containers many times. I used to stay at a hotel right beside that called Tenose Hotel, right? So the highest office, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, is about 40 meters from the front gate there, that where Anthony was at. So
Yeah.
it's a camp called San Vicente Camp. It's right beside Highway 1, right beside the Pan American Highway. It's right beside the Tenose Hotel. So you got the China camp. You've got a little runway over here that's a Nicanor Air Base, which is, you can't even find it on Google Earth unless they've changed. And then there's the hotel it's a 1-star hotel. I stayed there for months because it's right where the action is. I call it a
Sure.
5-star 1-star because the people are nice and it's clean. But no hot water or anything like that. But it doesn't matter because I'm doing jungle stuff. But what I'm getting to is that camp, Mayorkas came down there, right? I physically was present. I was present when he came. I waited for him for 4 days, right? So he landed right in front of me in 4 Blackhawks at that little runway, about maybe 400 or 500 yards away, and then they came into the camp, and he was there. Now, keep in mind, Mayorkas used to be a board member on Highest because he is the child of Sephardic Jews from Cuba, right? And so Highest, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, made him a board member because they had plans for him. And so, because first of all, he's Jewish, so he fits right in there. And then you go to highest.org and you can see they're congratulating him on becoming Department of Homeland Security chief. So he came down there showering money to increase the inflow, the invasions right into the United States. I was physically present. And Highest, I almost leased that Highest office right there, but they got it before I did, because the owners of that building right next to the San Vicente camp are the people that own the Tenose Hotel, right? And so I was like, yeah, I'll just lease this thing. It's right next to the camp, and then Highest took it. And anyway, but the end of the day is, this is very well organized. It's happening here in Japan as well. It's happening all around me, actually, and it's happening in Thailand. For people watching this who are in Thailand, you go to some of the malls and you'll see those pretty girls with the little credit card readers, and they're like, hey, if you got your credit card, you can donate to the UNHCR to help the stateless people and yada yada yada. I tell you what that's for. You're donating towards the destruction of Thailand, because that's what they're doing. Because there's people that want to split Thailand into the north part and the Isan part, northeast there, and then the south part and Bangkok, split all these off, right, into multiple parts. This has been a dream people have had for a long time. And a lot of people say that's impossible. You can't do that. And I'm going to tell you what. I feel like a safe cracker, and you tell me that safe can't be cracked. Give me some more C4. Watch this. That safe door will fly open, right? And that's what I'm telling you. If these people that are going after Thailand, they're going at them with the most intense anthropological warfare. They've succeeded in getting all this cannabis crap out there all over the place. Now they got stores all over the place. They started cracking down on it in the last week or two. Part of it's because I went over to Thailand. I'm better known in Thailand than I am in the United States, actually, believe it or not, which is kind of weird. When I'm walking down the street, people know who I am because I used to, I was there in 2 of the coups, right? And I was there. You know what I mean? I wasn't like in Thailand. I was like where the shoot. I was there where people were getting shot and killed all around me. It was game on, man. And so 2 of them, 2010 and 14, right? And so people know me quite well. So when I went back over there and I started talking with certain people, and I'm like, you know what? You need to, in your media, you need to attack this crap, because this is what they're doing. I love Thailand, and I know what they're doing, because war is my business. They're going to take you out. And I know you're all proud and you think it can't happen. In my country, United States, I'm deeply American, and I'm watching what's happening in my country. And by the way, our allies like Japan, where I'm at now, I mean, a huge part of our security is in our allies being strong, right?
Yes.
We want Thailand to be strong. I want them to be nationalist. I want them to be like, we're Thai. I want Japanese to be, we're Japanese. You know what I mean? And because we want strong. Do you want weak people on your A team? You know what I mean? You want serious people, serious players, right? And they're weakening them all. They're trying to get the drug things cranked up here in Japan. They've had less success, but they're trying. They're doing the Chinese water torture, trying to get this drugs to take off here.
Yeah, I've been saying this for years. Like when I first got into this because of the porn, my kids when they were freshmen, they're just graduating high school. Is that we're in a war? Most people don't know that we're in a war, and we're losing the war. We're losing the war badly. And this is the most important war that we've ever been in since the Revolutionary War, or maybe the Civil War.
Big,
And they don't
big.
realize we're in a war, and we gotten so soft. Americans got so soft, so weak, worried about your jobs. Of course, nobody wants to lose their job. But if we don't have a country, what the hell does a job do, right? If we don't have America, we don't have a country. Who gives a shit about your job? People have to get off the couches and help us fight this war, and all these things that you've been talking about that's going on globally in nature is happening within the United States of America. And if we're weak, the world is weak, and we just have a band-aid with Trump right now.
Yeah, and let me go back to that PTSD thing. Intoxicants and music combined. I didn't finish off what I was saying on music because in my way of my world, I go off on these tangents and I end up down a whole tributary 20 miles from the mainstream that I started on. Right. So but the music,
Yeah.
they like that the old people warned us about, Paul Harvey, that they warned us about. And a lot of people have said, like, that are depressed, they see how I never seem to get depressed. Like I actually don't. I would be depressed if I didn't have evil to fight, right? I don't know, but there's plenty of
Yeah.
it, so I'm energized, right? So so everybody needs a mission in their life. If you don't have a mission in your life, there ain't no way you're going to be happy. You have to have a mission that's bigger than you are, that's more
Yes.
important to you than yourself. When you have a mission that's greater than you will not stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I
retirement, you got
yeah.
to be out of your mind. Retirement, no, I'm going to the tape, right? And so and so what I'm getting to is with music. When people say, well, people over time have wanted advice, like that are depressed or whatever. And I'm like, can I look at your music list, or let's look at the music that you're listening to? And it's always got this depressing shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like you got to get rid of it. I know you love crocodile rock or whatever, but you got to get rid of that crap because it's poisoning you. It's making you depressed, right? And it's always about, oh yeah, they're having fun at the bar. Okay, we're at the bar again. It's like that. Get out of that crap. That's dope Joe Rogan crap, right? And keep in mind, the reason that they have Doper Joe doing that, because he's Mr. Big MMA guy. If you want to weaken the United States and you want to weaken the testosterone level of men that we need to defend our border, they'll defend their bong, but get them to defend the border, right? They'll run you over to keep going for their bong, right? And but they won't run you over to get down to the border. But what I'm getting to is you get a big strapping dude like Joe Rogan, and he's always talking about LSD or some crap, right? He's always talking about what's the best thing to do here, Like he had this one guy, psychological operations guy on there. What's his name? Chris Hugh or something like that. And Masako wanted me to listen to it, so we listened to it. It was like 2 hours of pain during a drive, but it was like a methylene blue commercial, right? It's like it was like it was. But so they're talking about psychological operations the entire almost 2 hours, right? More than 2 hours, but they never mention the real rocket fuel of psychological operations is intoxicants. They never even touched it. That's like talking about the Air Force and avoiding the mentioning of airplanes, right? It's like, yeah, okay, hey, let's talk about the Navy, but let's don't mention ships. It's like, submarines out of the question, right? So, and so if you're going to run a psychological operation, you're going to wheel in the drugs and the alcohol and all. Alcohol is a drug. You know what I mean? So whatever. We all know that. And so, but they never mention it because he is a clear operation, right? It's a clear psyop. But people go, yeah, but look at all the great guests he gets. Totally. I get it. Because if you're going to poison people, you're going to invite them to the greatest meal they've ever had. They're going to smell that from a mile away. Oh man, dinner's going to be great. You got like a whole table of everything, the greatest in the world. And there's one drop in there and you're dead, right? Just because when you're doing psychological operations or when you're doing information operations, often 99% of what you say is completely true. And it's very valuable. That's how you get them there. That's how you keep them drawn in. You get all these great guests and you get them. And then you're like, yeah. And then they start talk about dope for a little while. And then it's back to whatever else they were talking about. That's what they're doing. It's straight up psychological operations.
Well, I think,
Get the big tough guys to do it.
it's not just that. It's the sexualization of our children. It's indoctrinating our children. It's
It
weakening them.
is.
It's separating them from the parents, right? Taking
Yeah.
control in the schools. We know that like from I graduated high school in '79. And then when my friend, I didn't get my degree till I was 37. I was a slow learner. Actually, I got in lots of trouble in my 20s. But as my friends went to college, they were being brainwashed by the ones from the '60s, right? And then they took
Yep.
control and they solidified controlling the brains of now they're all executives and stuff, right? They're ruining America. Then they creeped into the high school. Now they're creeping into the grammar schools, right? And they're controlling our children's minds. And they're
We're
creating
trying to plant mustard seed. They're planting poison ivy seed.
they're weakening our children. They don't want people like us to fight and speak out against them, right? And they're being successful. And that's why you talk about your passion and something bigger than you. That's why I've never been involved in politics, none of this shit until 4 years ago. And I'm sitting there looking. First I started out with the porn and stuff. Well, actually it's forced masking of my kids. Forced masking. Went to my first school board meeting, then I saw the porn stuff. I'm like, there's no way this is in the school. Are you effing kidding me? Right. And then so I started getting involved in the politics side, and then like with Ben Bergquam and confronting all the Trent Largo, and it's like all to me, it's all intertwined to take
It
control.
is.
I mean, I really believe it's all intertwined, and we're fighting this. I say it over and over again. We're in a war, and we're losing badly. And most people are so stupid that they don't even know we're in a war, let alone losing the war.
Yeah, it is. It's a very comprehensive. Keep in mind, it's not like somebody just thought this up last week and started doing this. This has evolved over a period of where does it even start? At least
Yeah,
centuries, right? Like
Yeah.
globalization is nothing new.
yeah.
Globalization goes back millennia, actually,
Mhm.
so it's been going and it's been evolved. The ways of doing it have been evolving. The weapon systems and have been evolved. When I say
Yeah,
but the main, some of the main, like the fighting over Iran and Ukraine and all that, that's directly related to Panama Canal. But
yeah,
and some like the Navy, the serious Navy people and the serious intelligence people, they see it instantly. They, of course, it is right, but a lot of people don't see it at all. Even a lot of it's funny. I was on this group call a few weeks ago, and I mentioned Shanghai Cooperation Organization, right? And one of the retired military officers got all upset because I'm like, I mentioned a lot of military officers don't even know who SCO is, right? And how important they are in this battle. He got very upset. He's like, "What do you mean?" Blah blah blah. He's like, how, I'm like, listen, hold on. Do you even know who Shanghai Cooperation Organization is? It's the other NATO, right? You know what I mean? It's the enemy NATO,
Yeah.
right? And Iran and Russia and China and Pakistan and India and Azerbaijan, they're all members of it, right? Right.
mm,
And so the official languages of the SCO are Mandarin and Russian, right? And now
right.
keep in mind, there's a railway that goes all the way from Shanghai. I've been to that side of it, and it goes to Tehran, right? It goes all over the place. It goes down into Thailand. It goes to Rotterdam Harbor in Netherlands. It goes down into Spain. China is very busy with their railroads, right? That
Yeah,
means they don't have to go through Strait of Malacca for a lot of their shipping, right? They're doing all kinds of other things. For instance, they're building a canal from the Mekong River in Cambodia over through Cambodia into the Gulf of Siam or the Gulf of Thailand, and that will then cross over the Kra Isthmus in Thailand and go out to the Andaman Sea, right? So there's these various ways they can bypass the Strait of
mhm,
Malacca. But a lot of the things that are going on, the main part of the wars, the bulk of everything that's going on is about routes and resources, right? Routes and resources. If you want to know what's going on, the war is almost always going to be about routes and resources, right? And like Iran are sitting astride the Strait of Hormuz. There's 7 major naval chokeholds, right? The most important for us is Panama, right?
Yes.
Then there's the Suez, of course, and then there's the Bab el Mandeb, which the Houthis they just sunk another ship, and
Yes.
I don't. So
I think two in the last 2 days.
Yeah, so I haven't checked the traffic through Suez, but I'm a Marine tracker today, but I should do that when we get off because I have a feeling that that's going to be diminishing real quickly. Yeah, because they just so you got the Strait of Gibraltar, of course, the Turkish Straits or Bosphorus. You got the Strait of Malacca, Danish Straits, right? You got these chokeholds, and if you can control Strait of Hormuz, whoever controls the Strait of Hormuz, Now, Iran has no interest in closing the Strait of Hormuz, but you'll see this big information program by Zionist forces. I call them ZF, which is an amalgam of U.S. and it's an amorphous group that's global, actually, right? And Israel is just one part of it. It's not like Israel is even the headquarters of it. They're just another. It's actually another useful idiot. The reason we have Israel there, Theodore Herzl and all those that wanted to start Israel, and I could go into hours about this, but that's because it's right next to the Suez Canal. It's right next to a lot of other important things, right? Because a lot of when the Jews wanted to have their own home state, they could have done it in Argentina. A lot of them are like, why don't we do it in Argentina? And a lot of them are down there right now. I mean, they're in Argentina, right? And so, or they're in Panama or other places, right? There was a lot of places you could take property and not fight. But British intelligence and U.S. intelligence helped Theodore Herzl and the rest get, especially British intelligence at that time, go for the Palestinian property, right? And because that's by the Suez Canal, which is the Suez Canal, right? It's up there with it's unbelievably important, right? But now with all the oil and whatnot, the Strait of Hormuz obviously is incredibly important. But why would Iran want to close the Strait of Hormuz? They wouldn't, because their SCO partners like China, they would be cut off from a lot of their. They can't just take all that by train, right? And Japan, this place, if Strait of Hormuz gets closed, this place will be impacted immediately, right? In a huge and very bad way, as will Europe, as will Saudi Arabia and Emirates and Qatar and Iraq and Kuwait and Bahrain. They'll all be very badly affected, as will Iran. I think, I'm just guessing, there's a very high chance that the United States and Israel, Zionist forces, the same people who did something to Nord Stream, which I predicted many times in advance, in writing, it's either in writing or you didn't do it, or on a podcast or something, right? I was predicting so much that Masako Ganaha and I, we went to Germany several times. The last time was the 14 days before Nord Stream got blown up. We went to the BASF plant at Ludwigshafen, Germany, which would be the number one. If I were going to deindustrialize Europe, I would take out Germany, right? If I were going to take out Germany, I would take out BASF and Nord Stream, right? So that's why I was predicting that Nord Stream would get interrupted publicly so many times. So we went to BASF, and the second time we went there was 14 days before it got blown up. Now, a lot of people, they've asked me who blew up Nord Stream, and I'm like, let's see, I have two suspects. It's the United States or space aliens, right? That's it, right? And if somebody closes the Strait of Hormuz, it will be United States and Israel or space aliens, right? Unless we first destroy Iranian infrastructure or something like that, that they don't have an interest in keeping it open. The Iranians have a vested interest in keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. But keep in mind, we can close the Strait of Hormuz easily, very deniably, because the sea mines now, since many years, are very sophisticated. You can drop them; they just lay on the bottom of the sea. They're not floating up where everybody see them. And they got acoustic sensors. Whenever they hear a ship go by, the right ship, because they're programmed for the sound of a certain ship, like an aircraft carrier or whatever. And because keep in mind, naval intelligence keeps they've got a library of all the sounds of all the ships that may be targets, right? That thing, those sea mines now, they can launch torpedoes, right? So it's not like you have to go near the thing even. And so why is the Iranian Navy even still floating? So if we keep saying that we think that they may mine the Strait of Hormuz, but we leave their Navy intact, non sequitur, right? I mean, because if you're closing the Strait of Hormuz, will immediately have dramatic effects on the global economy. But will they do it? Yeah, I don't know. I think greater than 50% chance.
We're actually out of time, unfortunately, guys, because it's already it's 9:30, and I've got to set up for another show here in about 2 minutes. Unfortunately.
Oh shoot! I'm sorry. Oh yeah, and then we missed Garda World. We'll do that next time. That's really important to me as well as it is to you, and we'll have you back on to talk about Garda World and who they are and what they mean to Chicago and part of this invasion of America.
Let's do it next week. I'll have my new studio set up next week.
All right, man.
Perfect. And I'll have unlimited time next week. I told somebody I'd do him a favor and help take care of a show because she's not feeling well.
Yeah, he's got. I didn't know.
All right.
That. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
See y'all.
All right. Thanks
Bye.
again, guys. We'll be back next week with even more.
Bye.